better business, and a better life begin here. Welcome to Business is Art on True Chat with author and business consultant, John Umstead.
Thank you for tuning in today. On the agenda for today's show, we're going to be talking about a topic that's probably near and dear to a lot of our listeners' hearts, certainly near and dear to a lot of entrepreneurs' hearts, I'm sure. And that is the topic of dual careers. In this case, our guest actually has a dual career. You might say she even has more than two careers, but at least two paying gigs. One is as entrepreneur, business owner, and the other is as public servant. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But first, I would like to invite you all to connect with me. You can find me out on Twitter at John Umstead. You can find me on LinkedIn or go to my website, plancanvas.net, and let's start a discussion and dialogue. Love to hear from you. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and get this conversation underway. Our guest today is actually a recurring guest. Her name is Melanie Flax-Wilt. She is the founder and owner of Shiftology Communications. She's also a Clark County, Ohio commissioner. Welcome back to the show, Melanie.
Thank you, John.
It's been a while since we've had you on. I think the first time we had you on, we were actually the show was pretty young. I can't remember which episode, what number of episodes you were on, but we're up to episode 136 now, pushing 3 years. And I think you were on sometime in that first year. And the topic was momtrepreneur.
Yeah, that's right.
Which has gotten no easier for me to say than it was then.
It was a lot of fun to do. So I'm glad to be back. Thank you.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. Like I said, I think this topic is near and dear to a lot of our listeners' hearts. Our listenership has grown quite a bit in the last couple of years. And so we just like to cover some things that mean something to them, obviously. So I think this one does. Dual careers. But before we get into it, Melanie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. I'm a farm girl from South Charleston, Ohio. I grew up in a very strong agriculture family. My family was very involved in public service. I'd spent many years in 4-H and playing sports, and went to the Ohio State University and got my degree in agricultural communication because I decided that when I learned that you could do something in agriculture that didn't require sweating and smelling like manure, that I had found my life's calling, and that was talking about agriculture as an agricultural communicator. So that was kind of what launched me in my first career, and maybe a little bit of my second career here too.
You know, I don't think I've heard a goal quite like that in the on this show before, but just looking for an opportunity to not sweat and smell like manure. That's new for us.
Hindsight's 2020. That sound, in hindsight, that seems like it might have been a good choice for me at the time. I don't think that was the way that I formed the goal back then.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you have as well, but I've been around enough hog farmers in my lifetime to know that a favorite thing they like to say is it smells like money to me.
Well, that's exactly what my family does. We raise corn, soybeans, and swine.
All right. Well, thanks for that. Hey, can you tell us a little bit about Shiftology? What is it, and when did you launch this business?
Sure. Shiftology is actually just 10 years old as of this month. I launched the business in 2008, about 2 weeks before the market crashed, and we entered the Great Recession. Shiftology is a full-service communication agency. We help our clients to reach more, convince more, and win more. So Shiftology is a name or a word that we made up that means the business of, or the science of change. And the science of change is really about a process that allows you to help to change people's opinions, attitudes, and ideas about a product or a service, your business, an issue, any of those things that require some movement of where people are on their opinion about something.
And I apologize if you said this and it just flew right over my head because I was taking a few notes, but did you mention any specific industries that Shiftology focuses on?
We do have a special emphasis on the biosciences, but we don't limit ourselves to those. So we do work in financial services. We've worked with organizations in agriculture, healthcare, insurance. So we've really worked across the board on any kind of business because the same principles really apply. Mm-hmm. We do have, I guess, a special desire to do work with complex subjects. We find that work challenging and interesting. Mm-hmm. And there are usually opinions that are maybe not based in science that are influenced by things in society. And so occasionally we're sought out to do that kind of work to help get a community understanding a business or an issue that might impact them and help bring them around to understanding why it might be beneficial for them.
Yeah, I would think that would be very important work, particularly in today's day and age, wherein social media and other things can really feed into our emotions and take us away from the science of things. So staying on point and sticking with relevant facts and getting people to understand facts rather than fiction and emotion, I think, is very important work these days. So I appreciate that you do that.
What's interesting about that is that communication is a science too. And we just apply our science to the challenge in front of us. And, that allows us then to achieve the goals that our clients have. So, communication is defined as the science of creating meaning. And so when we apply our science to create meaning for our clients, whether it be something really scientific or technical or difficult or might seem difficult to communicate, it really isn't when you apply the skill set and the science of communication to the problem at hand.
Hey, I have a question for you. It's really neither here nor there, but you mentioned something that I wanted to ask about. You said you started the business in 2008, just before the market crash. And so I'm a little bit curious about that because, they say timing is everything. And right around that same time frame, I invested in a rental property. And it was my first and only foray into doing that because, like I said, the market crashed immediately following and lost a lot of money. And I just decided to never do that again. And for a bunch of other reasons. But was that good? Was it good timing for you or bad timing?
I actually think the timing was okay. The good news for us was that we were working with a big focus in the agriculture industry at that time. And fortunately, that economy was doing very well during those years. They were kind of in the high point at that time. So we managed through it by having that emphasis. We also, it allowed me to look at things as being, you have to run lean, you have to make difficult decisions. And I think having that idea and knowing, if we can make it during this time, we can make it for a long time. And that was a good way to start.
Good validation. Yeah. And that also, that time frame, 2007, 8, 9, 10, really marked a period in business in general, wherein people began moving toward entrepreneurship and freelance work really out of necessity. So I would think, as long as someone had a good business, good product, good service, and a good way to communicate it, as you said, that could have been a pretty decent time, if nothing else, a time where the business could be validated. And I imagine some actually did better than they would have done had they stayed with an employer, because they may have lost their job, when things did begin to really get bad.
And I've seen a lot of freelance types of businesses come and go because they might have been conducting that business just to, stay employed or stay busy during that time. I really went into this as somebody who wanted to be a business owner, who was an entrepreneur, who had been planning for years to move that direction. And so it wasn't a quick fix. I was fully employed and quit a 6-figure job at the time and, walked away from that. So I wasn't running from something, but I was trying to replace where I was at with something better.
Right, right. Yeah, the best time to start a business is not when you absolutely have to start one. So,
Right.
All right. Hey, to our listeners out there, if you want to join our discussion, you can find True Chat on social media at TrueChat.org. That's TrueChat.org. Or you can reach out to me on Twitter directly at John Umstead, as mentioned earlier. But do start a conversation with us. We would like to hear what you think of today's show, any past shows, and what you'd like to hear on any future shows. So please do contact us. Let's get back to this conversation with Melanie. And Melanie, we talked a little bit about the business that you started and continue to run today, Shiftology. But like we said at the outset, you have a dual career. You are also a public servant. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do in that capacity?
Sure. A county commissioner in Ohio is a member of a board of 3 commissioners who are elected to the position. They are the administrative branch of government at the county level. And so what we do as a board of commissioners is administer state laws in the county. In Clark County, we have about 140,000 residents. About 60,000 of those live in the city limits of Springfield, and the rest live outside in the county or in the villages and townships, such as New Carlisle, Enon, South Vienna, South Charleston, Tremont City. So we serve all 140,000 tax-paying citizens of Clark County, and we work to improve the tax base and opportunities and jobs for our citizens and improve the quality of life in every way that we are allowed to by law. But we do not make the laws. We are the administrative branch.
All right. So, Melanie, now, in addition to being an entrepreneur and a public servant, you're also the mother of 2 young children. You probably hear this all the time. I certainly do. Sometimes I'm guilty of saying it, but you hear people say, I just don't have time to do this or to do that. And, you basically have 3 full-time jobs. How do you make time for each of those?
Well, that's a great question. I find myself asking myself that on a regular basis, and also along with, are you crazy, Melanie? But yeah, I have 2 children of my own, and my significant other's son also lives with us most of the time. And so there's actually 3 kids whose schedules we work around like every parent does. You're running kids, they're 13, 12, and 10. So we're running kids to and from practices. We're helping them with homework. We're managing their schedules in addition to our own. I've got the 2 jobs that I'm juggling. And then, of course, my significant other has his job that he's juggling. And fortunately, it's a partnership that works very well. And so how do I make time for these demanding roles? It's a balance. It's sometimes it's a great balancing act. And I feel like I'm barely staying afloat. But the thing that I always come back to is I just have to prioritize. I spent a lot of my life saying, when somebody would say, how are you? My answer would be busy. And it came to be that it just really bothered me to answer that way, to say busy. Well, so what? I'm not busier than any other mom. I'm not busier than any other business owner. I'm not busier than any other elected official. I'm not busier than a stay-at-home mom. I'm only as busy as I really want to be, or that I have the capacity to be. And so I quit defining my life by being busy. And I started instead to say, I want to be busy with the things that matter. And, learning to say no, learning to prioritize, learning to ask for help. All of those things allow me then to go, okay, this is what's most important in front of me right now. Are the floors at my house perfectly clean and shine? Nope, they're not. My kids, sometimes I might miss putting a vegetable or a fruit in their lunch, and that's okay. I realize that perfection is not the goal. But I know my intentions are good and that they're the most important thing to me. So it's just having my priorities straight. And I think that's That's the challenge for every working parent.
Yeah, and in both personal life and in business life, right? Or in within any business, there's also no shortage of things to do or things to try, and often these things manifest themselves in internal projects or strategic initiatives, or even the goals of the business itself. But you need to sit down and prioritize those things. What are the most important to you? Because you can't possibly do everything all at the same time simultaneously. So you have to pick and choose. And, like I say, within business, something might be a great idea, a great thing for you to do. It's just not a great thing for you to do right now because there are some other things that have to come first.
Right. Well, always my family is important. And I can say my faith is important, but I probably don't do as good a job demonstrating that priority in my life. It's important when it's important. And I know that's the wrong way to look at it. And then, of course, serving the community is something that I've just always been really passionate about, helping to improve the agriculture industry, which is, why I went into business in the first place. Those things, if I can just remain focused on, why did I start doing this? Why is it important to me? And if I can remember that why, it becomes a lot easier to remember what's most important.
Yeah, speaking of that, I want to come right back to that immediately. But first, I do again want to remind our listeners that all of the podcasts on our network pursue a common goal. And True Chat's mission really is to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversations. And if any of our listeners have any ethical concerns with today's episodes, please email ethics@truechat.org. Again, that's ethics@truechat.org. Let's get back to this conversation again. We're talking about dual careers. And in this case, our guest, Melanie Flax-Wilt, has a dual career in that she is an entrepreneur, business owner, and she is a public servant as well as a mother, and has sometimes a very tricky balancing act, being full duty on all of those kinds of things. And Melanie, coming back to your statement about why do you do this in the first place, one of the cool things that I find in so many entrepreneurs, the best entrepreneurs, I think, aren't just focused on their business. They have other things that they do, other causes or interests outside of the business. And it's really very interesting to talk to the entrepreneurs and hear what those are. And that's one of the reasons I always close this show with, do you want to tell us about any cause that you'd like to mention? Because it's just so fascinating to hear all of the things that people are trying to do to make this world a better place outside of their business. So coming full circle now with back to you, you're a busy person. You've got a business, you have employees to take care of, you've got family to take care of, you have other things relative to yourself to take care of. So it's not like you needed this additional responsibility of public service on your shoulders. So why did you feel called to it?
I guess I've always had somewhat of a calling to public service. That was just the way I grew up. My family was very involved in our church. We were involved in 4-H, not only taking 4-H projects, but being in leadership positions, serving on student council. My grandfather was a county commissioner 20 some years ago. In fact, I serve in the same seat that he served in, and my desk is in the very same office that he had. And so I think that has a special place in my heart. My grandfather is still living. He's in a retirement home in London, Ohio, and doing well this week. So, watching him serve in that way, it helped me understand what the job is. I don't think there's been any mystery to me about what's involved in being a county commissioner. So it didn't intimidate me at all. And my grandmother, even being a stay-at-home mom for many years, she had a master's degree and didn't work in a paid position, but she did work for her community. She served at the hospital every week. She was a volunteer at the hospital. She not only did that, but she managed the volunteers. She always had food for someone, who was suffering a loss in their family. My mom and dad, very much the same way, helped to, they were 4-H advisors. They served, on the PTO and were involved at the school. And my dad was involved in the agriculture community. My mom continues to serve as a spokesperson for the pork industry. So I think it's just part of who I am to be called to public service. And this way, I was actually asked to run for office. So I guess a few other people out there thought that I might be good at it. The other thing is that it's been such an easy transition for me because so many of the things that you do in public relations and communication are relevant to being a public servant. Having meetings, collaborating, working with people who have sometimes the same and sometimes different opinions. And so that's been a valuable transition for me. It's really not that different than what I've done in my other career.
Has being an entrepreneur made you a better public servant? And has being a public servant made you a better entrepreneur? And if so, why, in addition to anything else anything that you may have just mentioned? Well,
I think the first part of the question's easier. Being an entrepreneur has definitely made me a better public servant because I've been an entrepreneur for a decade. Actually more if you count the little aerobics business and the side hustle PR business that I had prior to that. Yeah, that's definitely made me a better public servant because especially being in the career I was in, I learned how to get things done. I learned how to delegate. I learned how to manage a budget. I learned how to think. I know this sounds so cliche, but think outside the box on how do you solve problems. And I think the best thing that being an entrepreneur helped me do in public service, and it helps me every day, is I don't just accept the status quo. I question things. And often I find myself going, well, why? And then when somebody says, because that's the way we've always done it, I go, well, how can we do it better? And that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. You're able to look at things and go, well, if it's not working for us, then let's just change it. Let's figure out how to change it. If that means changing the policy or working with our state elected officials because we have now poked a hole in the system that we're working in, let's fix that. The second half of the question about being a public servant, making me a better entrepreneur, I guess that's still kind of yet to see. I've been in the role of county commissioner for 2 years. And one thing I will say for sure is I am learning to have thicker skin. That's a tough lesson to learn. And I'm sure that will help me in my business. And also just, having a bigger organization to look at the finances, to look at the budget, to make decisions that have a larger impact on so many more people. I know those things will serve in helping me to be a better business owner as well. And it's, it also makes you really think hard about every decision you make because ethics are so important on the public side. And I had worked in state government for 6 years early in my career. And I was aware of those requirements, but, applying them every day as a county commissioner, I think reminds me on a regular basis that those ethics apply whether you are in public service or private business.
Yeah. And I'd like to go back to something you said earlier about problem solving. It's something I've been studying a lot about and writing a little bit about, over the last few months. And, you find so much of the time that we've used this phrase on this show before, but people fall in love with the solution, and what they should be doing instead is falling in love with the problem. So, and part of that is first agreeing on what the problem is. We so often create solutions without ever really formally agreeing on what the problem is in the first place. And then once we've got that solution out there, it's my solution's best. No, my solution is best. And then that's when we get into these nasty fights and arguments, because now we have fallen in love with our solutions and not with the problem that we are trying to commonly take care of.
That's a great observation, John. I see that every day where we fall in love with our answer. We fall in love with even in my other business, it's the brand. We present 3 brand concepts and we try really hard not to fall in love with the one we think is the best. And if they choose the other one, we don't want to be hurt about that. But to me, I guess it's not it's not the challenge or the solution that drive me. I love the process. And the process of public relations involves research, planning, implementation, and evaluation. It's kind of a circular process that goes around and around. And it's developed for constant improvement over a long period of time. And the process for public service is so much the same. It's starting with good information and research. And like you said, defining the problem, planning within the system that we've developed over the last 200 plus years as Americans, and then implementing a solution and evaluating that solution. And then we have processes in place that allow us to improve upon it, that we're not stuck where we are today or yesterday. We can constantly improve our community. We can constantly improve our business. I love the process.
Well, you mentioned a couple of things. I would like to ask if there's anything else that you might think of, but you'd mentioned ethics and having thicker skin. But are there some other major lessons learned from your experiences as either from being a business owner or a public servant that you would like to share?
Oh, lots of them. But, most importantly, I think it's just surrounding yourself with great people. Somewhere early on, I learned from a boss that you don't hire people unless you think they do a better job than you. And they make you look good because they are better than you. And I've been fortunate to work with some fantastic people who are incredibly talented and can do so many things that I can't even dream of doing. So I'm fortunate to work with wonderful people. I'm fortunate to have a great support system of, parents who are helpful, significant other who's helpful. And, I think I've always got to take care of myself too, and understand that if I'm healthy, if I'm happy, then I'm a better mom, I'm a better public servant, I'm a better boss. So I make time to take care of myself too. And that means things like training for a half marathon on October 20th. And, 2 weeks out, I'm kind of wondering why I've made all that time, because it's a lot of time when you get to this stage and you're running 9 or 10 miles once a week.
Yeah. You just had nothing better to do, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I was bored. But it reminds me, those things and those challenges remind me that I have to take care of myself too.
Melanie, you mentioned another thing that is just, I feel is just so critically important that a lot of people don't think of when they are moving toward entrepreneurship, starting a business, or moving into a new leadership role at their place of employment. And that is that support network. It is really vital to have that support network because it's easy to bury yourself into your work, not take care of yourself, not take care of your relationships. And pretty soon you find yourself in a pretty dark, miserable place. And that's a big reason why those support systems, your support networks, are so important, because they keep you honest. They remind you that, hey, we care. We're here for you. We want to help you succeed. We want to help you live a happy, healthy life, and not just fade away into your career. So I appreciate you mentioning that, because I think a lot of people forget about how vitally important that is.
Well, I would just remind people that if they're thinking about doing 2 careers, to just be really sure that they have the support network in place, their priorities straight, and really be organized and passionate about what they're doing. Because I can't imagine how you could manage this unless you had your heart and your spirit completely into it.
All right. Well, thanks, Melanie. Appreciate you being here. Before we get out, where can people find you, your work, or any special causes that you'd like to mention or promote?
Well, they can find me and learn more about the business at shift-ology.com. They can email me at melanie@shift-ology.com. And as far as special causes, I guess I always encourage people to be positive about the place that they live and contribute, and make sure that before you ask for them or ask why don't they do something about it, to ask yourself, how can I do something about it?
All right. Well, thank you very much. Very much appreciate the example that you set as a business owner, as a parent, as someone who cares about our community and is called to public service. So thank you for being that example for all of us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Always a pleasure.
You can listen to True Chat Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and anywhere fine podcasts can be found. For Business is Art on True Chat, I'm your host, John Umstead. And again, my guest has been Melanie Flax-Wilt. She's the founder and owner of Shiftology Communication, as well as a commissioner for Clark County in Ohio. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Business is Art. Be the change.
For responsible media, listen on demand to politics, sports, and more with the True Chat app or at truechat.org. Beyond the horizon, there is trustworthy media at True Chat.